Afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us, particularly on such a sunny and warm afternoon. What we've got ahead for you is really an overview of the options process. So in a moment, I'll be passing over to Mrs. Barker-Garrard, and she'll talk to you. If you could just mute as you arrive, that'd be amazing. Thank you. She'll talk to you about, first of all, the different subjects that are at options, the different subjects that you have to carry on all the way through, the different modes of assessment, which are really important to think about when you're designing your basket of things that you're picking and your subjects that you're picking into your GCSE years. And she'll talk to you a little bit more about assessment and GCSE grades. And then she'll talk you through the options form so you know exactly what you're doing. And then following up from that, tomorrow, as I hope you know, there's the Year 9 consultation evening. So not only will you be able to look at the material about each different subject, which Ms. Barker-Garrard will talk to you about, you'll then be able to ask any questions, have any conversations with your child's teacher in each of their different subjects tomorrow in order to get the best rounded view possible of which subjects will be best for your child to continue with into their GCSE years. So without further ado, I'm now going to hand you over to Mrs. Barker-Garrard, who's our curriculum lead, and she'll take you through the entire process. Mrs. Barker-Garrard.
Thank you very much. I'll just share my screen so that we can see that. Claire, could you just give me the thumbs up that you can see that? Perfect, wonderful. Thanks very much. And thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to come along to the options evening launch. Hopefully the Year 9s that are with you right now are really excited. The idea behind this presentation is to do a couple of things, is to make sure that the students know what it is that they're able to choose. That's the idea of what.
Oh, Mrs. Barker-Garrard has just gone quiet, so she's obviously having a slight technical issue, which is helpful because I completely forgot to say that if you do have any questions through Mrs. Barker-Garrard's presentation, if you could pop them in the chat and then we'll get to those at the end of the presentation. That tends to work really well. Hopefully Mrs. Barker-Garrard has worked out.
Am I back?
Mrs. Barker-Garrard, that was my fault because I muted everybody to try and stop the feedback, but that muted all of us as well. So my sincere apologies, and we're back up and running. Thank you, team.
Super, lovely. So aim of the presentation is to make sure that the Year 9s are aware of what the choices are in terms of what their availability is, because it's not an unlimited range of choices, to give them some sort of advice on how to make those decisions so that they know who to ask for help, and share with you the options website that we've put on this year in lieu of the fact that we haven't been able to do a live options evening, and to make the key dates very clear. And like Mrs. Simmons said, this presentation will be recorded. So if I say anything and you forget it, because there's lots of information, you can go back onto the options website, rewatch the video, and so that you're really clear on what you can and cannot do. Before I begin, and I have started this over the last couple of years, as parents ourselves, we would have gone through a very different system. And the system has been reformed recently so that the GCSEs are back to linear qualifications again. So rather than having lots of modules throughout year 10 and 11, we're back to being assessed, and right at the end of year 11 having the big assessments. They were reformed so that they are now more demanding. There's lots of extended writing within the exams. And the way that they're graded has been changed as well. So in the past, where we might have been referring to things like a C is a pass, and an A star, it's been changed to numbers. And I show this more for us as teachers and parents to get our heads around that a 9 is the top grade, whereas a 1 is the bottom of the grade boundaries. And as you can see here, which was given to us from Ofqual, that what used to be an A is broadly equivalent to a 7 and above. And I give you that as a bit of an indication that the GCSEs that your children are about to embark on are quite challenging. And so that needs to play into the decision making, and something I'll refer back to a little bit later. I also pop it there so that it's a bit of an introduction for next year when you start having progress checks sent home with different numbers on, so that you can start getting familiar with them. Okay, so on to the more exciting bits. Creating your curriculum. Now, I always refer to this as a bit like Lego. My daughters love playing with Lego, and it's amazing how they'll start with the same pieces of Lego, build a creation, and the creations they make are very different to one another. And it's very similar to that with our curriculum. All the students will have the same Lego bricks to start with, but what they decide to do and make with their pieces that they can make can be very different, to ensure that we get the right curriculum for that student. And what's right for one person might not be right for somebody else. So it's a chance to be creative with the options we've got in front of us. The one thing that will be the same for all of them will be the compulsory subjects. So all of the year 9s going into year 10 will study English, and they'll study English language and English literature. It will appear on their timetable just as English, but as a result of those 2 years, they will get 2 GCSEs at the end of their qualification. Now, those 2 GCSEs are actually 4 exams that they'll sit in the end of year 11. For mathematics, they'll get 1 GCSE in mathematics. It's a tiered paper, like the old days when I was back at school doing my GCSEs, where there'll be a foundation and higher paper to sit upon to ensure that students are challenged at the right level, and they'll get 1 GCSE qualification. And then all students will do something called combined science, where they'll get 2 GCSEs, and it'll be a mix of biology, physics and chemistry. Everybody in year 9 going into year 10 will do combined science, but I will refer to something called triple science a little bit later. The first decision they get to make is about their core PE. And as a PE teacher myself, I know the value of how important PE is to young people. And it's really good that our government still ensure that all year 10s and 11s, regardless of whether they decide to do a qualification in PE or sport, still ensure that schools deliver core PE. So core PE is a non-assessed couple of periods in the week where it's really focused just on the physical, to ensure that they do some physical activity in the week, as well as all the mental and social benefits that come along with that. The only option they have to not do that is if they decide to do the very practical subject, which is called a BTEC in Performing Arts, where there'll be lots of dance involved, as well as singing and acting. The BTEC Performing Arts has already started in year 9 for the students that have decided to do that within their double PE lessons. And those students can continue to carry that on into year 10 and 11, and they will get a qualification called a BTEC in Performing Arts at the end of the 2 years. If there are any students sitting there now that really wished they had decided to do Performing Arts this year, please let us know, because there is still an option for you to do that in year 10 after a conversation with Mr. Hawkins. For students that are sat there now thinking, right, I've done a double or PE lesson of Performing Arts over the last year, and although I enjoyed it, maybe I don't want to carry that on in year 10 and 11, that's absolutely fine to not carry that on as well. So just because you've done it in year 9 doesn't mean that you have to carry that on in year 10 and 11. Now, in the options form, which I will show you in a little while, there'll be a question where it says, would you like to do core PE or would you like to do Performing Arts? So it doesn't appear in our options block because it's not one of the option block subjects. It comes within the PE option, and that hopefully will become clear when I show you the form. The more exciting area. This is the area that all the students are going to be spending the next week hopefully talking about. So we have the options section of the curriculum, and we've got 4 Lego pieces. And that's because we have 4 blocks that we have at the moment for our school. And there is a number of subjects within each of these blocks. Now, the first thing to get your head around and to understand is every subject that I list in the first block will be on the timetable at the same time. So if we've got 2 subjects in there, we've got both of those lessons going on at the same time, so they can't do both things within that block. So the students will choose one thing from block A, another thing from block B, another thing from block C, and another thing from block D, to ensure that they can go and visit those subjects at different times within the school week. Now, I have had to decide which subjects are going in those blocks, and that's based on a number of variables. A number of variables that include things like which staff I'll have delivering the subjects, what facilities I have available, how many hours I can possibly put into each of the subject areas. There are lots of variables, and so the first thing that I need to say to you is I am not going to be able to move a subject from one block to another. Those blocks are set because I know that I can timetable them. And as I said, you choose one subject from each block. So I sent an email last week sharing these blocks so that students had chance with yourselves over the weekend to start thinking about what options are available.
Oliver's option evening.
In block A, we have these subjects available, block B, block C, and block D. They will be on the options website, or are on the options website that I'll show you in a second. You have been emailed, they are in the booklet, and they'll be on the form. Okay, so as a result, so far, we know that students are going to be taking 2 qualifications in English language and literature. They'll be taking mathematics, and they'll be taking combined science, which is worth 2 GCSEs. Some students will opt to do BTEC Performing Arts, or they'll opt to do PE. And then we've got 4 further qualifications from these different option blocks. So a few bits of information around the blocks. The first one, block D, you'll notice is much shorter than the others. And that is because we have French, and it's the only place where we'll put French in our option blocks. There will be 6 classes of French on during this period of time. And most of our students will select French. The reason why we very strongly suggest that students take French is because it's one of the subjects, and probably one of the only subjects, that if you stop doing it in year 9 going into year 10, you are unlikely to pick up a language later on. It is something that people that are going to be employing students in the future will look upon favourably, because they know that taking a qualification in language is a bit more challenging, and it is a subject that hopefully with our global society will lead to more doors being opened. So the majority of the students will take French. If, and I said this earlier, the curriculum has to be right for the individual. If French is definitely something that is not going to be taken, then the student must take either history or geography. And that doesn't have to be in block D. I've actually only got geography in block D. They could decide in this block to take geography instead. But as long as they take geography or history in one of the other blocks, that will be okay with us. It's okay with us because that means that we're ensuring that there is rigour to the curriculum. We know that that student will go to any employer, any sixth form, any college, and there is a good bunch of qualifications that they're going with. So most people will take French, but if they don't, history or geography is a must. And it's the one thing that I have to check first before I start putting things into the system. There are also some prohibited combinations. Now, this doesn't come from us as a school. This comes from the government, and that's because these qualifications are too similar. The exam boards are very similar, and so the government will see these qualifications almost being like you're doing the same thing twice and getting 2 qualifications for it. So if a student decides to take GCSE PE in block C, they cannot then go and take a sports studies qualification because they're too similar. If they take art, they can't also take textiles because they're too similar. And if they decide to take music GCSE, they cannot take music technology because again, they're too similar. Photography changed its rules recently. So you can take photography and art, and you can take photography and textiles. although I would always urge you to think about a breadth of different subjects that you're taking. The other thing that you may have noticed, and especially with some of those prohibited subjects, is that I've used the letter V after some of the subjects. Now that capital V stands for vocational. So what we mean by vocational is that it's not referred to as a GCSE. It is worth the same as a GCSE. So for example, Enterprise, which is a vocational course, is worth a GCSE. It's a business course. It's worth the same as doing a business GCSE, but it's assessed in a very different way. So whereas the GCSEs will always be assessed at the end of the 2 years, so you learn everything in year 10, what you learn in September of year 10, you might get an exam question on at the end of year 11. Vocational courses are assessed as you go along. So for example, I teach a sports studies class at the moment, and I'm doing coursework with them where it's almost like project work, where they're learning with me over the next couple of months to do with media in sport, and I'll assess them via different projects and coursework and PowerPoints and presentations, and I'll give them a grade. And then I'll send that grade to the exam board, and it's worth 1% of their overall qualification. And after I've submitted that grade, I'll then start teaching them the next unit between Easter and the summer. And then I'll assess them, and then I'll send that to the exam board. So what is good about the vocational course is we get the assessments as we go along, and students will feel that confidence that they're putting grades in the bag as they go along. Also with vocational, because it is very much like a real job, you know, they learn as they go along and they share what they've learned. They develop lots of research-based skills, lots of group work. There's an element where it's not just all eggs in one basket on the exam day. It also means that if I share this picture with you, as I said right at the beginning of the presentation, we do have the English language and English literature that got 4 exams. That's 4 exams. That's how many hours they're going to be doing for English language and literature. Just with maths, there's going to be 3 exams. All that together is 4.5 hours worth of exams in maths at the end of year 11. Same with combined science, 4 exams, 5 hours worth of it. If they then take a French, a history, geography, a Spanish, that's going to add more exam time. So if in their option blocks, they then decide to do all GCSEs, we're then going to be putting in maybe another 2 exams for every subject. And so that's a lot of exams to take at the end of year 11. And for some students, that will be brilliant because they work really well under the pressure of exams. For other students, having that many hours of exams at the end of year 11 is not going to be a positive thing. For whether you're a student that struggles in exams, or you're a student that's high flying, 9s across the board, and you do really well in exams, if you could take the pressure off by maybe doing one subject that's vocational, that can be a huge benefit. So I very much want to get across to you that whereas maybe BTECs in the past had a bit of a bad rap and a bad reputation where students were doing a BTEC and getting a lot of qualifications and people were saying it's not as challenging as a GCSE, the vocationals went through a reform. They are as challenging as GCSEs, except it's an ongoing assessment and it's not all about the exam at the end of the 2 years. Okay, so where would you start? So if this was my daughter now going into year 10, I would be saying to her firstly, what subjects do you enjoy doing? That's where I would start, because your sons and daughters need to wake up in the morning and think that they're going into school for 6 periods and there's got to be something there that excites them and enthuses them. Which subjects do you enjoy? Which subjects do you excel in? And I'm not saying just for the students that are high flying. Out of all of the subjects, which ones do you feel more confident in that you do a bit better in? And which subjects do you wake up in the morning looking forward to studying? Which ones are they? Now, I would always advise the students not to go with the teacher. You know, we've got some amazing teachers at Ringwood School, but don't choose a subject just because of the teacher. because that teacher might not be doing that course. It might be a different, equally good teacher. Go for the actual subject content. And the way to start looking at that is to look on the Options website, where all the subject leaders have done a little 5-6 minute video to explain their course. For some students, they might start talking to you and start thinking about careers, and that's a really positive place to start. But there aren't many careers that are stopped because you haven't studied something at GCSE level. Just because you didn't do history at GCSE doesn't actually stop you doing history at A level. It's, you know, it would be better if you had that grounding in GCSE, of course, because it gives you a starting point, but it's not going to stop you. If you want to run your own business, just because you haven't done a GCSE business in GCSE age group of year 10, 11, doesn't mean that you can't go on and run your own business. But being interested by things because you're interested in a certain career, obviously that is going to make a link to you. So thinking about the subjects you want to do at A level, yeah, that's going to give you a good grounding if you do that at GCSEs. There's a very good website called Careers Pilot, and that a lot of the students have started doing in their PSHE time over the last couple of weeks. But it's a good place to start to think about which subjects link well together. If you're thinking about a science-based career, what sorts of subjects would go nicely together. And so I popped that link on so that you can refer back to it after this presentation. The other questions that we often get, and this is one that I was having a chat about to the head of science. She wanted me to make it explicit to everybody here that even if you're thinking about doing medicine or becoming a doctor or becoming someone to do with veterinary science or a physio, you don't have to do triple science to do those qualifications. In order to go on to become a doctor or something to do in the medical field, then your choice of A levels is important to get you onto the right degree course. But the GCSEs are a stepping stone onto the A level. So please only take triple science because you love science. Triple science means that you're going to be doing 6 periods of the normal combined science in a week. So that's more than one a day. Plus triple science would be an extra 3 periods. So you'll be doing 9 periods of science over a week. Now, I love my science and it's something that I did a lot and did for my A levels. I would have loved that. But for some people, that's not going to be their bag. So if you are wanting to do science later as a career, superb, choose triple science if you really love it and you're going to wake up in the morning and know that you've got 2 periods of science most days, great. But if that is going to be something that puts you off and you're not going to enjoy it, the enjoyment is going to be linked to probably what you get out of it at the end. And lastly, I've mentioned about French already. Have a really good reason for giving up a language if that's what you're going to do. And remember, if you don't choose French, then you must choose either history or geography. Now for the big caveat, okay? I cannot move an option because it doesn't fit for you into another block. That it can't happen. We're a school with 10 tutor groups in. I've got a number of situations already where I've got year 10 going into year 11 and year 12 going into year 13, and my year 12s have already chosen what they're going to do, and I can't just plot computer science somewhere else because the computer science teacher will be delivering other things at the time. And so there might be a reason why it's there, so I cannot move it. If a subject doesn't attract enough students, it might not be viable to run. Now, this happens on a very, very rare occasion. And if that does happen, then I will contact the student to let them know. So for example, if in Block C, we have a drama course and it doesn't recruit enough people, maybe only 2 or 3 people want to do it, I can't run a class with 2 or 3 because it means that every other subject that's going on at that time would have over 30 students. And obviously we wouldn't want that as a situation. And if that was the case, I would go back to those 2 or 3 people, explain the situation and see what we could do to guide them on another course. Equally, we might get to a situation where a certain subject over attracts and attracts way more than we can accommodate. And there are some caveats in the rooms. So, for example, our technology workshops can only house 22 people, and that's because of the size of the rooms with the machines that we've got in them, and 21 for photography. If we get to an oversubscription situation, I will do a little bit of shuffling around, because obviously I've got some subjects that appear in multiple blocks, and I can spend a day switching around the people that have chosen geography in one area to another area and so on. But if I get to a point where I have to go back to students, we will use our oversubscription policy. And that policy is very clear in order to be fair. So what I do is I will go back through the students' behaviour records and their achievement records that are on the system, and I will rank order them. And the students that have the most behaviour points are going to be the least likely to be able to get their first choice option. And although that might seem quite harsh, I also think it's a bit of a life lesson. Students that do the right thing deserve to get onto the right courses. For any students, if we get to a situation where we've got an oversubscription, we've got too many people, I will personally work with them one-on-one to ensure that we get a right curriculum mix going into year 10 and 11. Okay, finally, who can you ask for help? So tomorrow we've got the year 9 parents evening. So try and make sure that you've got appointments with the subjects that you're really thinking and umming and ahhing between, so you can find some more information. You can contact me directly. My email address has been shared a number of times already, as well as the head of year, who Mrs. Alsop will talk at the end of my presentation tonight. The subject leaders have already done their videos, but they can be contacted, as can the subject teachers. And I pop this in terms of the option video and website. So if I can just drag across a different screen. So if you go onto the school website and you go up to academic and you go over to curriculum options, you'll find this screen. Just get that to reload. At the top, you have got the option blocks. By tomorrow morning, this video will also be posted there. The guidance that I've already emailed to you is available, as well as the course outline. So for example, we've got our GCSE art video, which I'll just start, which is Mr. Fielder explaining about the course, as well as a download where it's a PDF that you can look on a tablet, or you can print it off to find out about how it's assessed. And if you scroll further down, there's one for every single subject. You also have an area for the vocational course outlines, which continue. So that's another area that you can use. Just get rid of that for a second. Wonderful. Okay, so the last thing I would like to share with you is the actual form. So tomorrow, via the school email addresses of the students, I will do a link to this form. This is what the form looks like. So the first thing to notice is the deadline. I need this form submitted to me by 3 p.m. on the 19th of March. That gives me the exciting job over Easter of downloading all the responses and ensuring that I can get all the students fielded into their preferred subjects. Although I did say a couple of minutes ago about oversubscription and undersubscription, last year we didn't get anybody that didn't get their choices. And I'm trying to aim for that 100% again this year. So be confident with what you're picking, that hopefully I'll be able to manage it. I need you just to do the form once, please, because if you do it once, then I'll just have your name once and I'll have the subjects and I'll be able to sort that out. It says on the top there, remember that one of your options has to be either French, history or geography. So what I need you to do is to write in your surname. That's because it helps me with organising it when I download all the information afterwards, and the forename. Click on to which tutor group you're in, because once again it enables me to sort to speak to people if I need to quickly. First question, do you want to take performing arts or core PE? And then very simply, option block A, which subject would you like to do? option block B, which subject, option block C, option block D, and then you press submit. I would then be able to download that information and start sorting out the options information. Lastly, I'll share that last one with you before I take any questions that Miss Adams has for me. What to do next? So please do visit the options page website, have a look at the videos as well as the blocks. Talk at home as a family about which subjects you're thinking about doing, and make sure that you're going to talk tomorrow to those subjects if you can at parents' evening. If there are any subjects that you're interested in that you don't currently take, for example, health and social care, enterprise, photography, then the relevant sorts of people to talk to, you might already be taught by. So for example, photography, talk to the art department, but you can also send information and emails to the subject leaders. So for example, health and social care is taught by a lady called Nikki Watson. If you go onto the options website where her health and social care video is, there is a download underneath for the information, and her email address is on there, and you can send a direct email to her about any questions that you have. And then lastly, ensuring that the option form is completed by the 19th of March at 3 o'clock. It would be much better if I didn't have to chase people for their options. And like I said, over Easter, I'll be already sorting out those subjects. And so if you get your option form in late, you might start going into a subject that is already oversubscribed. Okay, let me stop my share. There we go. Miss Adams, do I have any questions that I need to field?
Yeah, just a couple, if that's okay. A couple coming in about the fact that students are taking Spanish currently, not French. How does that stand with them, that option block D?
Yep, so for this, there are two groups of students that are taking Spanish. One group of students are taking Spanish because they needed a little bit more support with their literacy. And so for those students, they picked up Spanish instead of French because we still wanted them to develop a knowledge of another culture. For you guys, doing another language might be something that you want to do, and that's fine. You can carry on with the Spanish, but maybe history or geography would be a better course for you. For the students that have decided to do Spanish as well as French, and they've decided to take it as one of their creative options, you might decide to do either of them, but you might also decide to take both of them. So really consider with that language of French or Spanish, is this something you're going to excel well with? You're going to keep the doors open, then fantastic. Spanish can be replaced by French, but again, what I would put caution on is for the students that have picked up Spanish for the first time this year, but they've been doing French all the way through junior school as well as all through secondary school, which subject are you going to do better in? And that would be your own decision to then make.
Brilliant. And how does that stand with history or geography if you take Spanish? Because you were saying in that option block D that if you don't take your French, you've got to take your history or geography. If I take Spanish, what do I need to do with history and geography?
Yeah, like I said, so the Spanish, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You can take Spanish and then not have to take history or geography because it is a language. But be wary that you've only just started Spanish. Is your Spanish going to be up to your French level?
Yeah, brilliant. And just a quick recap, if you would, around the performing arts. If I take it in year 9, how does that look in year 10 for me? I'm sure the options form will tell us that, but just a quick one on that.
Yeah, so at the moment, all students in year 9 do a single lesson of PE and a double lesson of PE. But some of the students have decided to swap their double PE lesson for BTEC Performing Arts already. Now, in year 10 and 11, we don't have that single, we just have the double in year 10 and 11. So you can decide to carry on for the performing arts people and carry on doing your performing arts in the double. So on that options form, instead of doing core PE, you select the performing arts. But if you already do performing arts and you don't want to do it anymore, fine, select the core PE.
Okay, that's great, wonderful. And I know that the options page is going to tell families all about the subject choices. There's some questions coming in between media and media/film, so I'm guessing that will be well explained by the option videos.
Yes, it is. And I can see questions coming up about sports studies compared to sport OCR. It's the same thing. It was always called sports studies. The exam board was OCR, so that's the same qualification. Brilliant. And the videos will explain all of those.
And of course, you rightly said that families have got Year 9 option parents' evening tomorrow. So following that up tomorrow with some conversations with their class teachers.
Yeah, and you can always, in tutor time tomorrow, ask your tutors. You can formulate those questions together and pass them on to me, or email me directly and I'll get back to you straight away.
Okay, I think that's all covered. Thank you, Mrs. Barker-Garrett. All right, and I think I'm going to hand over to Mrs. Alsop.
Thank you, Miss. Hello, everyone. Just a quick hello from me at the end. I just want to say thank you for so many of you joining us this evening. There have been over 210 of you on this call, which is fantastic. As you can imagine, we're all really excited to have the children back at school. Yeah, really looking forward to that this week. So just a few little things from me before we finish. You would have received an email from me just before half term, just informing you that I am going on maternity leave in April. So yeah, I've asked to come along today, Miss Maguire and Mr. Nicholson, who you'll be able to see on the call as well. So as explained in my email to you, I am going on maternity leave after Easter. Okay, so if your child is in Ringle, then Miss Maguire will be their head of year. And if your child is in Woodge, then Mr. Nicholson will be their head of year in my absence. So as much as I'll miss the children, I just wanted to welcome you to their new heads of year while I am on maternity leave. And that's it from me. Thank you, Miss.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Alsop, and we wish you all huge congratulations and good luck. And I can see that coming in through the chat. So, Mrs. Simmons, final words?
Thank you very much, Miss Adams, and hopefully we've been able to answer anybody's questions. And I would just echo other words that all the videos are there on the website, so do watch those and they should give you a really good feel for what each different subject entails. The really important thing is the options subject, the sort of blocking guidance, which Mrs. Barker-Garrett has shown us, so you can see which subjects appears in which column, and that will answer questions like, can I do history and geography? Because you'll be able to see you could do geography in one place, in one column, and then history in another one. So really do go back to that and have a really careful look at where each of the different subjects are put, because that answers lots of questions alongside the videos as well. And then there's a really good opportunity tomorrow night to be able to talk to your teachers about any questions you might have about the course, because they will teach the courses, so they'll know that very well, but also your own suitability or son and daughter's suitability for a course, and whether it's the type of course that they're likely to do really, really well on. But I think I would go back to the very first thing that Mrs. Barker-Garrett said, and that is think about what you enjoy, because we want everybody to come to school really excited about what they're going to do with the day ahead. And the lovely thing about going into your GCSE years is that you do get a little bit of choice about what you're studying, and you really start to personalise your curriculum for yourself. So think about what's going to be useful, but also think about what you'll really, really enjoy doing and getting up early every morning to look forward to when you go to school through year 10 and year 11.
Wonderful. And I think that concludes our evening, and we'll stop the